Please welcome Florence Selden.
Good evening. This is a forum for the 5th Barnstable District, and the two candidates are challenging each other for that seat are Steve Xiarhos, Republican, and James Deaver, Democrat. The 5th Barnstable District includes Barnstable, precincts 11 and 12, Bourne, precincts 1, 2, and 7, Sandwich, and Plymouth, precinct 9. Both candidates have agreed to the format, which is a 2-minute opening statement. Then they will have 2 minutes to answer each of the questions, and then a 2-minute closing statement. When you answer your questions, if you have time in that question, you've completed your answer, you may respond to a previous question or expand upon another issue that you would like. So with that, we have Steve Xiarhos and James Deaver. Do you mind if I call you by your first names?
That's fine.
Okay, good. So we're going to do this alphabetically with the opening statement. And so our first speaker will be Jim.
Excellent. I'd like to thank everybody for hosting tonight's forum, the Cape Cod Young Professionals, the League of Women Voters, and Cape Cod Media. I'd also like to thank my opponent tonight, Steve Xiarhos, for joining us. And not only that, I'd like to thank him for his 40 years of public service as a police officer. I myself today was endorsed by the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, and I'm a union for them. I mean, they're attorney for their union, so I do understand what it goes through. Steve, I'd also like to thank you and your family for paying the ultimate sacrifice for our country, and for that, my family is forever grateful. Like Steve, I'm a family man. I moved to Cape Cod with my wife in 2007, my wife Bethany, and the idea was to keep an eye on my parents as they live over in West Yarmouth. In 2010, we were joined by Seamus and Brianna, our twins. And also, like Steve, I have a passion for public service and I love our country. In essence, if you're doing this job, I think those are 2 qualifications you just have to have. But that's where our similarities end. And the reason why I say that is the biggest difference between us is I'm going to be ready to go for you on day 1. The most important job of a state representative is to provide constituent services. That is, make life easier when people deal with the government. My first job out of college, I did just that. I was a congressional aide for Congressman Ed Markey, now Senator Ed Markey, but I wasn't down in Washington, D.C. with all the glamour. I was back in the district helping people get a fair shake. I worked on immigration and the environment, 2 issues still paramount today. After graduating Suffolk Law School cum laude, I went off to work in the labor field. And again, labor field is the same thing, constituent services. One of the labor unions I represent is the National Association of Government Employees. What they are, they're the largest public service union in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So my job, when somebody gets treated unfairly by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I'm there to stick up for them to make sure they do get treated fairly. For you folks in Plymouth, Sandwich, Bourne, and Barnstable, it's going to be the exact same thing. You also need to go up to Beacon Hill and know how to negotiate. It's not, and I'll look forward to doing that and other services for you later on. Thank you.
Thank you. I did not know there will be a 30-second sign up and then a stop sign, and I will let you finish your sentence, but not your paragraph. So thank you, Jim, for adhering to that. Steve, your opening statement.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. And thank you for those kind words, Jim.
Definitely.
And thank you to Cape Cod Young Professionals, the League of Women Voters, the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area, and my special friends right there at the Cape Cod Media Center. I want to thank you all for your service. My name is Steve Xiarhos, and I'm running to be the next Massachusetts State Representative in the great 5th Barnstable District. And I love it. I've loved this whole experience. When people ask me why I'm running, I often talk about my 4 decades as a police officer in Yarmouth, over 40 years. I'm proud of my work as the deputy chief. I learned the importance of training and teaching professionalism to fellow officers. I'm also proud of my work as a school resource officer. I worked firsthand with teachers, parents, and students for over 7 years to solve complex problems in our schools. But looking back, I'm mostly proud of wearing 22 pounds of extra gear and being on patrol, handling situations firsthand as a police officer, as safely as I could. That's where I learned best about working with people one-on-one. I learned how to diffuse conflict, how to forge partnerships and build bridges. And those are the skills that I bring to be our next state representative. Due to my experience, I know what the laws we need to pass to keep our community safe. I'll keep violent and career criminals in jail, and I'll continue to fight against opioid abuse. As a state rep, I'll continue to tirelessly give back to our community. It's who I am. I'm ready to fight the COVID-19 crisis, reopen our economy, create jobs, get kids safely back to school. We're all in this together. I know it's going to take a lot of hard work to get us back to where we used to be, but we can do it by working together. I'm up for the challenge. I can't wait to be your voice on Beacon Hill. I'm Steve Xiarhos, and I ask for your vote on November 3rd.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve. We're going to start with our first question, and Steve, you will start off. How has
All right.
COVID-19 shifted your priorities as a candidate in this race? What issue or need in our region has jumped to the top of your list since the onset of the pandemic?
Great question. My fiance is a nurse practitioner at Cape Cod Hospital. So I would say initially it was getting proper equipment for our nurses and first responders, which I did. I would actually go around and get donations for things like masks and gloves and the respirators that they wear, and get them to the hospital so our nurses and our doctors and our first responders would have them. That was initially. Then I thought, as we went deeper into it, it was to make sure that we fed people. So I personally did over 60 events in over 30 cities and towns all over Cape Cod and Massachusetts, feeding veterans, feeding military families, and even feeding illegal immigrants in Chelsea. Now, here we are, towards the end, hopefully. It's opening our businesses. I've met with so many business owners, small business owners. They told me their stories. They're hurting. And I've actually, reached out to the governor several times to ask him to help us open our economy here on the Cape. And it's getting there, and we need it. So the COVID crisis, I think, has gone in stages. It was protecting our first responders first. It was feeding people and making sure that our people in our district and all over the Commonwealth had what they needed. And I did that firsthand as a volunteer. And now it's getting our economy back to the way it was. And I know it's important to Jim and everybody that's out there, getting our kids and teachers and schools reopened safely. So we can try to get back to normal. We're probably in a new norm. And I'm the guy that has firsthand experience. I'm willing, I don't sit on the sidelines. I try to help others every day.
Thank you. Do you need the question repeated, Jim?
No, thank you.
Fine.
It's interesting. When I decided to run for this office, it was because I was a 6-year member of the Sandwich School Committee. And every single year at budget time, even though we might get an increase in budget, our overall services had to go down. So you go to town meeting, you see everybody fighting for resources. And you realize here in the Barnstable 5th, we've been a voice in the minority party for 20 years, not the majority party. And that's a huge difference when it comes to resources. So I ran to give our schools resources, to give our towns resources. And it was funny when COVID hit, nothing funny about COVID hitting, but the idea when COVID hit, my reasoning hasn't changed. It's only been exemplified. That the number one thing we have to do besides constituent services and making sure our residents get to the right state agency is that we need to give them the resources they deserve. And that is something that when you're a member of the majority party in Beacon Hill, you're one of 130 that get to make those decisions. You're not part of the 30 on the sidelines. Another thing that is utterly important for us is our schools. How exactly are we going to open our schools safely, and what is the plan for going forward? Well, that's the reason the Massachusetts Teachers Association has endorsed me, because I understand what the best process is to go forward. And when it comes to our public safety officials, I couldn't agree more with Steve that we definitely need to make sure they have the personal protection equipment they need. It's a main reason why not only Steve's fiance, but her coworkers endorsed me as part of the Massachusetts Nurses Association, because the Massachusetts Nurses Association knows I'm going to be there for them on the issues that count. When it comes to COVID, we can't forget our small businesses. There's what make us thrive here in Cape Cod. And for them, we need to make sure that their insurance policies are honored through COVID, and we also need to make sure they get the rent relief that they need. Together we can do this, and it's something that I've done my entire life dealing with government agencies for people. I'm looking forward to having the chance to do that for Sandwich, Barnstable, Bourne, and Plymouth.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I hate to interrupt, but Jay, something seems to be wrong with Steve's picture. We get his voice, but he's not synchronized. Steve, is there something with your computer or Jay?
Could be.
You haven't experienced that yet tonight.
I don't know, but he, it's just, I hear him perfectly, but he's off in his picture is off from his words. Are you all set with your computer, Steve?
As far as I can tell, I can ask my my nurse practitioner upstairs to come and take a look at
You
it.
see the,
Yeah.
it's a funny
You can
picture.
probably-
Jay, do you see that? No,
Is it ghosting?
I don't know. Okay, well, maybe it's just me, but everybody else is fine. So, okay, we'll go
Okay.
on. Maybe we can work it out. Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow. Anyway, we're going to start the second question with you, Jim.
Sure.
Cape Cod is seeing a tremendous need for leadership in environmental matters, from planning for future sea level rise to building long overdue wastewater infrastructure to mitigating the tourism-related environmental stress and pollution. If elected, how would you work to preserve and protect the natural environment of Cape Cod?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that question, because I think there's nothing more important besides COVID than the environment and climate change to our area. I think it's one reason why I was invited to speak at the climate strike last September, in which high school students around Cape Cod, they organized this because they said, you know what, we're just not paying enough attention to this climate situation. So I, without a doubt, is on the top of my plate. And it's probably one reason why the Sierra Club of Cape Cod has endorsed me. I was just talking about the mass teachers and mass nurses. I like to say those on the front line of COVID have endorsed, and those on the front line of the environment have endorsed, because they do see that my plan is to work together with people so we can solve these issues. I think when it comes to the environment, you've hit perfect. We need to worry about our wastewater. Something we also need to worry about is the temperature of our bays and how that is affecting fishermen and lobstermen. That has got to be a top priority. We know for a fact beach erosion here in Sandwich is something we have to worry about. We had to move our public safety building just for that reason alone. So when it comes to the environment, there are just so many things that we can do together at the state level with the federal that makes a tremendous difference. And I think having a relationship with the federal government makes a big difference. As I said, Senator Markey's a good friend of mine, so is Bill Keating. And one thing that we're going to be working on is try to make Nantucket Sound a national park, a national sea park, if you will. And that's something that the feds and state can work together on. So hopefully that's kind of an example of some things we can do together. But with the environment, there is no doubt it is a top priority. And as I said, I look forward to working with those in the Sierra Club, those that are trying to ban plastic bottles, those that understand the blue economy, to realize we can do this together. It's funny, when I talk about the Green New Deal, I see the green as money for our district, because we have so much untapped potential in the area of environmental sciences. It's just waiting to be released. And I look forward to helping that get released to help the environment here on Cape Cod.
Thank you. Steve, do you need the question repeated?
No, I'm good. I'm good. And I'm sorry if it's ghosting a little bit, but I'll do the best I can.
No, it's not your fault.
Okay. Great question. When you think about it, I believe, our number one issue on the Cape, out of a lot of them, is safety. We have to be safe, but we also have to keep us clean. So you guys are right to ask that question. Cape Cod is beautiful, and it strikes you more when you leave. My son, Nick, God bless him, fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of the last conversations we had was he couldn't wait to come home to live on Cape Cod. It's so beautiful. So we have to make sure it stays that way. Drinking water, I think, is the most biggest concern. We have to make sure we keep our drinking water clean. and wastewater. And that's an expensive issue. You know, we need some type of wastewater facilities all over the Cape so we don't pollute our drinking water. An example would be the golf courses. You know, we have a lot of golf courses and we're lucky, but we need to make sure that those fertilizers and pesticides are not polluting our water. So Cape Cod is beautiful. That's why people come here. Boating, golfing, fishing. Sometimes we take that for granted. I won't. It's so beautiful. We need to work hard to protect it. Drinking water, wastewater, public safety, and, you know, for the people of our district, especially those bridges. That's a big issue. We have 2 new bridges coming, and it's important for all of Cape Cod and all of our tourism, but they need to be done right. And as a state rep, I'll make sure they're done right, both financially and environmentally. And I look forward to that. Keeping Cape Cod clean and safe really is our #1 priority.
Thank you, Steve. And you start the next question, which is, if elected, how would you work to bring young people to the table on local decision-making and increase civic engagement among Cape Cod's next generation of leaders?
I love it. One thing is what we do as in the young professionals. You know, I got to go to a class, a leadership class, just before COVID, you know, hit. So as a police officer, I was sitting in the leadership classes, and you meet a lot of young people, and you also break down barriers between police officers or older people like me and the young people. We all want the same thing. We all want to live safe. We all want to be responsible. We all want good jobs. We all want to take care of our family. I think one way to do it is open that up. Sometimes people don't know what's going on. So communication is important. For instance, tomorrow, we're going to be feeding people at Cape Cod Community College. So there's a real way to get your college students involved and others that are young to come and volunteer tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We have thousands of pounds of food to give out to Cape Codders, not just military, not just veterans, anybody. So I think sometimes if you give them a project, they'll come and they'll participate, and then they get to know you and you get to know them, and you build a bond. Same thing in policing. It's called community policing, working with people so they get to understand each other, realize we're all humans, we're all trying to do the same thing. And our Cape Cod, the future is our young people. We need jobs, and COVID has kind of taught us maybe a different way to do jobs. You can stay at home. You don't have to travel as much. Make sure our fishermen, all those other things that go on every day, open it up to young people, get them excited, listen to them, right? We don't always have the answers. Listen to their thinking, work together, make a beautiful community. And I look forward to doing that as a state rep. I have a lot of energy, and I will be doing that as we move forward.
Thank you, Steve. Jim?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's funny, my engagement with this next age group has already started. As I mentioned before, being part of the climate strike here on Cape Cod, that's really a group of folks that are energized and doing what they can for civic involvement. These young kids from the various high schools, just to see them at this event and seeing their passion for it, how they're able to organize and get people together to get their message out. I think this group, this age group has a tremendous potential that we just need to push in the right direction. One thing that I'm excited about from a public school standpoint, and it's something on the school committee, I really would raise my hand a lot, say, where is the civics in class? Aren't we teaching civics? I remember from junior high doing that. And thankfully, last year, civics became part of the curriculum for Massachusetts high schools. So it's important to teach civics, I think, so our students can see how it's done. I think the debate the other night maybe showed how it's not done. So I think to have kids learn about civics and the proper way of government, without a doubt, is most important. And it even starts before high school. I mean, it starts in scouting, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I mean, that's why everybody in the community, it's so important to play their role. And that's why I just want to play my role as their state representative to open them up a bit more to civics. One thing you're going to have to do for this younger generation to have them engage, they need a reason to stay here on Cape Cod. They need a reason to raise their families here on Cape Cod. And we can do that. We have the potential with the STEM programs in high school, science, technology, energy as well, to really have kids go from high school to maybe Cape Cod Community College, to have that hooked up with other environmental chances here on Cape Cod. The idea is to give kids, students, an opportunity to stay here on Cape Cod. And if we play our education system right and we can hook it up with our environmental concerns, I think we have a great chance. Keep them here. Give us broadband. Without a doubt, we need broadband. That's the tool for this century that needs to be on Cape Cod. If we give them the tools and a reason to stay, they'll stay and get involved.
Thank you. And Steve, you get the next question first.
Okay.
What have you specifically accomplished towards workforce and affordable housing? And if elected, what would you do to develop more affordable housing on Cape Cod, especially for young families, workers, and older people who want to downsize?
Great question, huge topic. My personal involvement is several ways. First of all, as a police officer, I saw the homeless. You know, I was out in the woods seeing people suffering from homelessness and probably mental illness and addiction. I saw the homeless camps, I saw the hungry, and I'll never forget that sight. What do we do about it? We need to have better conditions. So some ways you can do it is you could take, like we did in Xiarhos, where I was a police officer, and they're doing in Sandwich now, you can take old buildings and redo them. For instance, an old school, like the Wing School in Sandwich, there's an agreement now to make that into affordable housing. Workforce housing is huge. How can we expect our workers, the landscapers, the people that provide the services that don't always get credit, our farmers, to have a place to live when it's so expensive? Another way to do it is if you have an old hotel, like Yarmouth has a lot of them, you can turn those into workforce housing or affordable housing. Do it the right way, make sure they're permitted and they're done right, but you're repurposing properties that are already there. I was involved with all of that. Remember, if you have housing and jobs, you have less crime and we have a safer environment. That also touches the environment. They're not, sometimes they make a mess out there in the woods. I've seen that, where they're using drugs and needles, and it can be very messy and it costs a lot of money to clean it. So I've done it as a police officer. I've done it as a community leader. And I'm also on the Human Services Commission in Barnstable, which I've been for over 3 years. We see it every day. We work hard to fix it. And that'll be one of our top priorities if I'm elected.
Jim?
Yeah, thank you as well. Fantastic question. You're right. Housing is the issue. It is one of the issues that is so paramount to Cape Cod. And when it comes to talking to the workforce and work people, again, been doing it my whole life, either as a congressional aide or as a labor lawyer, talking to working families every day. And what we need to do is give them places to live here on Cape Cod. I think one good start to it was Rep. Fernandez's bill last year that went around the State House. I think that was a good start to it. If we can have a certain cap, and that bill, by the way, was part of a whole package of housing opportunities and housing chances here. And what that bill did, it put a tax on when you have your lease, or I should say your deed, filed at the court, there's a certain transaction fee. So for homes over $1 million, it put a small tax on that. And the idea is you put that to a specific purpose, not to general fund. That's the thing. Anything like that, it has to go to a specific purpose, kind of like what they did in Plymouth. They did a meals tax strictly to fund the construction of their town hall. Worked great because most of those were taxes being paid from folks outside of the district. Same thing here. If you do something like this, it's got to be put towards a housing fund. So that money is only used to create a housing fund, a land fund, if you will, kind of like they have the land banks out on Nantucket. I think without a doubt, something that we have to do is give folks the tools to succeed if we give them the homes. Not only do you have to build the homes, you have to have them be able to live there successfully. And I know something that has really come to the forefront to me during COVID is early childhood education. Right now, we're all at home trying to get this done, and it's hard to do, very hard to do. And if you're a family who's just starting out and trying to afford your housing at the same time, without a doubt, early childhood education, not daycare, early childhood education is something we need to do to help families build the homes they have here and live in the homes they have here. And as your state representative, I'm going to make sure that's a top priority, along with the idea of some sort of housing pool, which we can use to lower the rents for folks.
Thank you. And now we just have time for the closing statements. And Steve, you're going to be first giving your closing statement.
Okay, thank you. This has been very interesting. Thank you, Florence, and everybody out there, the young professionals, the League of Women Voters, for sponsoring this. When I entered this race, I committed to making Cape Cod a better place. You know, I have over 7 police unions that endorse me. I have the the Massachusetts firefighters. A lot of people, a lot of state representatives, the sheriffs, a lot of people are behind me because I'm committed to making Cape Cod a better place for people to live, work, and visit. And when you think about it, it's all about preserving Cape Cod for young people to inherit as part of the next generation of people who will live and work here. The decisions we make today are very important for our future. I believe it starts with public safety. We need to make sure Cape Cod is a safe place to live. As a former deputy chief, I know what it takes to keep violent criminals in jail. I know what needed to keep dangerous drug dealers off the streets, and how to keep fighting this opioid crisis that affects just about every family across this Commonwealth and Cape Cod. I'll proudly support our first responders and the mission they do every day. I'll work with our state and local officials to make sure we pass laws that keep Cape Cod safe, clean, and sound. As we know, 2020 has presented so many challenges to all of us. It's changed our way of life. As we look forward to 2021, I want to take an active role in leading our state back to a more vibrant time. Let's make sure we get our residents through this crisis we are facing. I'll work hard to make our state need to do everything we can to make it a better place. And I'll work hard to get our economy going, reopen our businesses, our restaurants, and our tourism. And last but not least, I am a Gold Star father. You can count on me to always support our veterans and stand for our flag and our freedoms. If you agree with me and our priorities, I ask that you vote for me on November 3rd. Thank you, Florence, and thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Steve. And Jim, you get the last.
Thank you. Thank you again, everybody, for this event, and Florence for hosting. Last summer, when I get into this, folks would ask me, Jim, what do you feel about Donald Trump? What do you feel about Washington, D.C.? And I'd say to them, Plymouth, Bourne, Barnstable, Sandwich, we're about ponds and oceans. Let's keep the swamp in D.C. Well, unfortunately, over the last month or so, my opponent in the Republican Party is slowly bringing this swamp into our ponds and oceans. When I was out on the campaign trail talking about COVID, talking about how we're going to have our school children go to school, my opponent was asking to see my tax returns. Why? I still don't know. And just 3 weeks ago, my family, my son Xiarhos, daughter Brianna, wife Bethany, it was a Sunday afternoon and we were talking about Black Lives Matter. And I said to them, you know what? I think tonight I'm going to go down to the Sandwich Public Library, because what they do there, they have just a nice ceremony with some candles and just kind of think about what's been happening. So lo and behold, I go down there on a rainy Sunday night, maybe just 4 or 5 of us down there. Some kneel. I was praying and just praying for something to happen in this country so we can solve this problem. What happens? A week after that, the Republican Party is using me, that picture of me praying, as some sort of attack ad to raise money. It calls me a radical and it calls me a Marxist. Rest assured, all that is right there is that's just the same politics we're hearing from Washington. The idea of we need to divide people. You have to pick a side. I think that is horrific. As a state representative, you can't pick a side. You need to be with both people in this community. So that's why I love being accepted by Black Lives Matter. And it's why I love having the endorsement of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, which includes our own Sandwich, Dennis, and UMass Dartmouth Police. Folks, this is a very important race. When it comes to the future, you need somebody with experience and that knows what they're doing in this. When my union members walk into my office, there's a picture over my shoulder from a 1948 campaign truck. It says, "Vote for Friends of Labor, Dever Walsh Roosevelt." That Dever was my granduncle, Paul Dever. He was governor in 48 and 50. He was then. I hope to be your representative now. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Cape Cod Young Professionals and the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area, I want to thank you both for participating in this forum, because both organizations are committed to the idea of civic engagement and also voter education. And by being here tonight and presenting your views on the issues, you have helped inform the voters, and hopefully they will be able to make good choices on November 3rd. So again, thank you. It isn't as though we would like to be face-to-face, certainly,
Definitely.
but
Someday.
we have to deal with it virtually, and you've done a good job on that. So thank you again. And thank you, Cape Media Center, for hosting this event.
Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.